I have really, really good news and some really, really bad news. First, let's start with the really good news. I was able to speak for about 45 minutes with Mr. Andrew Hoffman of CryptoGoldCentral.com, and I'm going to have that coming right up after this. However, after the first 10 minutes, I had a parcel come to my house, which generally triggers a crazy reaction from my two dogs. So I paused everything to make sure that didn't get recorded, should that have occurred. Excuse me. So somehow I managed to lose all the audio after that point of my interview with Andy. So I managed to get 10 really, really good minutes recorded. Unfortunately, like I said, there's another half an hour of picking one of the brains of one of the best minds in the investment field today, investment industry, financial specialties. So anyways, so here we go. We're going to have a quick look at his site. Last August, I think, is when he started to do this. Basically, the first bit of our interview talks about how he went through it. It's some really good information. Then he goes over the reasoning and why he did it. So, and you can go here anytime, subscribe, check out the blog. Oh, I'm not logged in. I logged in. Now, when you subscribe to Andy, you're going to get consistent quality work. He is eloquent in how he speaks, and he's honest, wears his heart on his sleeve. He will never give you dishonest opinion or point you in a direction that he thinks is could be detrimental long term. So, just an endless stream of information. This guy puts out so much fantastic information, it's unreal. So I encourage you all to follow him on Twitter, check out the site, subscribe if you're interested in maybe liquidating some of your precious metals and you're not sure how to do it, where to do it, who to go see. Andy is a great person. He replies to every single email he gets. Every email. He's just a stand-up human being. So, big believer in Bitcoin. He says he's a Bitcoin maximalist in one of the part of the interview that it was cut off. But just fantastic stuff like this. Look at this. Why central banks are so scared of cryptocurrencies. And most of us who are into it know why. But Andy, again, will give you some great details and reasoning to why he would say something like that. So, just a wealth of information anyway. So, without further ado, enjoy the 10 minutes that I did get captured with some really good information still right away, and I will definitely look to have him back in the future if he's still amicable for that, which I'm sure he will. Thanks for watching. Enjoy. Welcome back to the Silver PsyOp, everybody. I'm super stoked to have an esteemed guest, Mr. Andy Hoffman of the Gold Crypto Central.com, CryptoGoldCentral.com, sorry, sir, and formerly of Miles Franklin, as some of you may know him from. Andy, how you doing today? Welcome to the show.
Doing great. It's just that your first thought was to think of me in terms of gold, so the gold comes out. But as we're going to talk about, that's completely changed for me.
For sure, yeah. So maybe you could just start off by kind of explaining to people, why you decided to make a major transition from, being major silver guy right into cryptos. Kind of talk about your thoughts on all that.
Right. Well, people know me. I've been kind of famous in the gold sector for over 15 years. It was 2002, when I went all in precious metals, and it was not long after that I became a regular contributor on the GATA website. That's how most people came to know me back in 2003 or so, and then I worked in the mining industry, mostly metals miners, but then in 2011 I started to sour on the mining sector, mostly because of a manipulation of stocks in general, but also because the cartel had done such damage to the industry that I just didn't feel it was a good risk reward profile. And at the same time, in 2008, we had the financial crisis, which really scared me that something terrible could happen to the financial system, in which case I wanted to go up the safety totem pole to the top, to precious metals. So in 2011, I went all in physical bullion. And in 2011, I also joined Miles Franklin, which is one of the bigger bullion dealers in America, as the marketing director. So I was there for 6 years, became well known there for my daily writings and podcasts, as someone who believes that I've never been a gold bug. I've said all along I don't believe a gold standard is possible again, because governments abuse gold standards just like they abuse fiat standards.
Yeah.
But I do believe it was an undervalued store of wealth, undervalued because there's all this inflation and because it was manipulated. So therefore I was all in precious metals, meaning physical bullion, about half and half from 2011 until 2016. But in about 2014 or so, I got my first inkling or interest in Bitcoin. It was way, way immature compared to where it is today. I did own one Bitcoin at Mt. Gox at the time, mostly because of speculative purposes, but it did intrigue me from the beginning. This, if it really was possible to have a decentralized digital currency that could be a store of value with a limited supply. After Mt. Gox, of course, that the whole Bitcoin industry kind of went into hiatus for about 2 years. But I followed it and I watched it, and I saw that the network was immutable. No one was breaking the network. The price wasn't collapsing. And it didn't get a lot of attention, but it certainly intrigued me. And when I saw in about January 2016, I saw that it just seemed like it was ready to break out. And I started to talk about it almost daily at Miles Franklin, to the chagrin of my bosses. But then at the time, I didn't think it was going to take over gold. I thought it would just be a complement to it. So I wrote everything in terms of, I think it's something else to consider. And it's something that will help gold. That's what I thought, because it will help break down the cartel or the powers that be. And I started acquiring Bitcoin in significant amounts and telling people about it. And I spent basically a year and a half doing that and talking about it at Miles Franklin, to the point where it became a real source of distraction, because Miles Franklin wasn't happy with that, and a lot of their clients weren't happy with that. And I was beginning to get unhappy with my whole situation, because I was becoming more and more interested in Bitcoin and less in precious metals. And finally it came to a head in August of last year, of 2017, mostly because my Bitcoin bullishness exploded when SegWit was locked in the middle of the summer, and therefore I believed it was in fact going to usurp gold. So I left the firm and started CryptoGoldCentral.com. It's a blog and also a consulting firm for crypto. And I went all in to Bitcoin. I sold all my silver this summer. I told everyone I did that when I left, and I just sold the rest of my gold, because I now believe that more than ever the future of potentially money and certainly wealth storage is Bitcoin, and that's my story.
That's awesome. I just lost your video again.
Oh, I'll put it back. It does that a couple of times sometimes, so keep asking. I'll talk.
Okay. So I mean, that's crazy to kind of go through that type of a transition in such a short period of time. But I believe, I see things exactly the same way as you, in that, this is totally the future, at least as a storage of wealth. I know it's tough for some people to wrap their heads around the fact that you can't touch it, you can't hold it, but you kind of can, because you're the only one who can access it, right, when you do it properly. And when you start to view, it's really the only way for business to continue to evolve, I think, on a global level. And the possibilities are endless. I mean, I believe this crypto space in general is really as a fledgling stage. I mean, I don't know how much faith I put into like the ICOs and a lot of what they call alt currencies. Personally, I don't call them currencies because I view them more as a stock. What are some of your thoughts on the altcoin world as a, and I guess what I mean is the ones that aren't going to be used as transaction, like Litecoin, Bitcoin, and Monero, say.
Right. Well, the bigger way of putting it is like, let's say you had in the dot-com era, you had the internet and you had the dot-coms. The internet didn't crash in the year 2000. The dot-coms did. And the dot-com stocks, I should say. And the vast majority of dot-com stocks were money grabs. The internet got excited. The hype was not about dot-com stocks. And believe me, I worked on Wall Street. I was in the oil field service sector at Solomon, and my job, according to the bankers, was to try to create IPOs of dot-com stocks in oil companies. I mean, that's what I did. I can do a whole talk about it. It's a crazy life that I had to live. But the point was, the hype in 1999, 2000 was not dot-com stocks. It was the internet. And so what happened was all these companies came in to piggyback that as money grabs. The investment bankers financed it, venture capital financed it, and speculators, most of whom have no idea what they were doing, were just buying them. And so you had a boom and a crash. At the same time, the internet didn't crash in 2000. The internet just kept growing and growing and growing, and look where it is today. And in fact, a lot of the, quote, dot-coms, or I should say some of the dot-coms back then, did become some of the biggest winners. I mean, some of them weren't even invented yet. There was no Google yet. There was no, there was Amazon.com, even though that didn't do well then, but it did well 10 years later and became what it is.
Yeah.
There was no Facebooks and social media back then. There was eBay, but look, now eBay has been subsumed by Craigslist. So there's a lot going on, but most of the companies were money grabs. Some were big winners. Some were big winners then and not now, and some were not big winners then now, but they were then. So but the whole point is most of the altcoins are pure money grabs. They have no use case. I would venture to say 95% of them are the equivalent of dot-coms that will never amount to anything.
Yeah. Because
either they don't have a use case, or whatever they do, if they ever advanced it, would just be subsumed by Bitcoin, the big colossus. It's the internet of money. But there are going to be some winners. Now, you mentioned some names. I don't necessarily agree that those names will be big winners. They may not be winners at all, but they are certainly some of the more well-known top-tier coins. It's arguable that Litecoin has some properties of Bitcoin, or that Monero has some properties of privacy that are unique. But I would say that over time, they too are going to be in Bitcoin's shadow, and they're going to have to really discern themselves. So to me, I'm what you call a Bitcoin maximalist. I only own Bitcoin because I believe it's the undisputed king of storage of wealth. It's been around for 9 years. It has hundreds of developers around the world. It's the most secure network. It's where all the top minds are. And it will never be beaten out for digital gold. It's already taken that title, never to be taken away. And me as a sound money person, that's why I got into it in the first place. Not because I think it'll be a transactional money, but the fact is it probably will be a transactional money. Not necessarily the transactional money, but it will definitely, look, and you said you're talking about, you don't trust ICOs. Oh, neither do I when you're talking about ICOs that are the equivalent of .com, money grabs. But to me, the concept of ICO is the future of financing. I think stocks and bonds are anachronisms that are going to be completely replaced by decentralized financing in the form of ICOs, but ICOs that are done the right way within some kind of written or mostly unwritten rules in the future. And that's why the Goldman Sachses are going to be put out of business.